Well, I think we all knew this day was coming. Peter Jackson will be back in Middle-earth. Warner Brothers are doing a brand new The Lord of the Rings movie, which is currently titled The Lord of the Rings The Hunt for Gollum. I believe that's just a working title, but this film is scheduled for 2026. And there is no way it ain't coming out in December. Every Middle-earth movie, from Fellowship to Battle of the Five Armies, has come out in December. And December 26 is the 25-year anniversary of Fellowship of the Ring. So yeah, this is a proper Lord of the Rings movie with Peter Jackson involved, Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens. The Trinity that brought us the Lord of the Rings trilogy. My favourite movies of all time, and the greatest trilogy in the history of cinema. The trio will be involved every step of the way, and Andy Serkis, who starred as Gollum in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and is also a second unit director for The Hobbit, will be directing this movie. And he's coming back as Gollum. So does that mean we're doing a Gollum movie? Which has to be completely unnecessary. Of all the works of Tolkien, Gollum as your movie? Completely unnecessary. Complete Warner Brothers cash grab. But I think, in my personal opinion, if this was going to happen, and it was always going to happen, who else other than Peter Jackson and his team? Yeah, The Hobbit wasn't all that great, but I think we should give them a chance to come back to Middle-earth. And with Andy Serkis directing, there's potential here. And I imagine that means we'll get Weta back, these films will be made in New Zealand. But the question is, are we getting Lord of the Rings Jackson or Hobbit Jackson? We've covered this many, many times. Peter Jackson wasn't all to blame for what happened with The Hobbit. Lord of the Rings, he had years to prep, and all of his heart was in it. Whereas when it came to The Hobbit, he jumped in as director in the last minute, pretty much ditched all of Del Toro's ideas, and his mindset was, I have to get this done on time. Studio's up my ass, I have to get it done. And we've all seen the behind the scenes, where he's talking about writing storyboards and script on the day, props not being ready, and Ian McKellen being ready to quit because of all the green screen and working on his own and not feeling like this is why he became an actor. The Hobbit movies ain't that bad, and they're a lot better than some of the stuff that's coming out in cinemas today. They're obviously a massive, massive step down from The Lord of the Rings, but I still love the movies. And I think a lot of the book moments that actually came straight from the page are very, very good, but it's all the other stuff, which ain't all bad, but I think when they forced in all the appendices stuff and the brand new stuff, especially that love triangle, it just oversaturated the film and it just felt like it was bloated. And 3 movies was just far, far too many. I think if you stripped it down and made 2 movies, it would be fine. But saying all that, I hope the Jackson we get is the Lord of the Rings Jackson. And Warner Brothers, don't interfere. Just let him and his team get to work. So yeah, this is the first of 2 movies, I believe. So does that mean we're getting a Gollum movie and another movie as well? Not including The War of the Rohirrim, which we'll talk about in a minute. Does that mean the second movie is going to tie into this movie as a part 2, or is it going to be a separate part of the Legendarium? But in terms of a Gollum movie, I imagine most of this will take place during the Fellowship of the Ring, in the 17-year gap between Frodo getting the ring and leaving the Shire. So we're going to see Shelob, Sauron, Gollum's capture in Barad-dûr and his eventual release, where then he's captured by Aragorn, who is on Gandalf's orders to track him down. As Gandalf is seeking information on the One Ring, he believes the ring that Bilbo has could be the one, but he needs information on this ring, the history of it, its whereabouts, where it's been, and of course on what Sauron knows. So we could see so many famous locations. We could see Moria, the return of popular characters such as Thranduil and Legolas, who eventually take charge of Gollum once Gandalf has to leave. We could also see other characters like Elrond, Galadriel, Celeborn. And that gets into the whole realm of casting, doesn't it? Because are you going to bring the old actors back 25 years later? Or are you going to recast them? But I imagine a lot of these actors are probably not interested in coming back to New Zealand and spending, maybe a year and a half of their life? But I think Ian McKellen as Gandalf is a must. I remember when Amazon first came out with their show, he said he'd come back as Gandalf, but Amazon hadn't got in contact with him. So I think if Peter Jackson asked him, in my opinion, you would see Ian McKellen jump at the chance to play Gandalf one last time. But Aragorn is going to be crucial to this story, because this Gollum movie I don't think is actually a Gollum movie. You can't have Gollum as your main focal point. I think Gollum works in small doses. I kind of feel this is a pseudo Aragorn movie. Not so much young Aragorn like what was reported when Amazon first started, but I think we'll see a lot of his backstory and moments that were cut from Fellowship of the Ring. I expect parts of his younger life, his adventures perhaps, travelling Middle-earth and beyond into the east, perhaps the wars he fought with Gondor and Rohan, and of course Arwen has to show up at some point. You can't do Aragorn without Arwen. Obviously the First Age and the Silmarillion is off limits. The Tolkien estate own the rights to that. Second Age is Amazon territory, so Warner Bros. Can't touch that. So I think they're stuck in the Third Age. And honestly, I think there's far more interesting stories out there than Gollum, like my personal favourite, the Angmar War, where the Witch King of Angmar, the leader of the Nine, destroys the Kingdom of Men in the North, Arnor. Like I said, they're already doing the animated movie, which is coming out this December, which is all about the War of the Rohirrim, featuring Helm Hammerhand, a former king of Rohan. And then who knows what else this will lead to in terms of returning faces and other developments. I think this is going to get a lot of people interested. Even though it is another adaptation that is completely unnecessary, I'll be there day one. I will wait and see what happens. I always have that approach. But I have faith in Peter Jackson and his team, and I'd rather be in their hands than Warner Brothers alone. But in an ideal world, I would just release a 25th Fellowship of the Ring Mithril edition, with even more scenes than the extended edition. Because I imagine many of you guys know there are hours of unseen footage from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Scenes that were cut, scenes that were just filmed but never finished, behind the scenes, so much we want to see. There's even stuff that was put in trailers that never made it to the extended edition. Of course, you're gonna have to let me know what you think about The Hunt for Gollum. Is this pure nostalgia bait, just Warner Brothers milking the cash cow, or will Peter Jackson and Andy Serkis come back and make something special? It's never gonna top the trilogy, but it doesn't have to. It just has to be made in the same vein with all the love and attention for Tolkien. Also, let me know if you think we're getting a pure Gollum movie, following him about just like that awful video game that came out a few months back, or is this something a bit more? And it's mostly about Aragorn and his life and his situation, and at the time he's just hunting for Gollum, and perhaps on his travels he's remembering past adventures. Not gonna lie, this still has to be an epic 2-hour movie, maybe even closer to 3, so Aragorn going about looking for Gollum in the wilderness doesn't exactly get you too excited, but I just hope it stays true to Tolkien and is made with the same love like the original trilogy. But I'm definitely on board for this, for Peter Jackson's return, and we'll have to keep an eye on any new developments. And of course they will be here, so stick around for those. So guys, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.